Archaeologists of Reddit, what are some latest discoveries that the masses have no idea of? Archaeologists recently discovered a hidden chamber in Roman Emperor Nero's underground palace. I'm an archaeologist who mostly works in the private sector. We find a lot of cool stuff, but almost everything we do is classified to some degree or another to discourage pot hunters and vandalism. This year I've found an extension of a really important late woodland, the period right before Europeans arrived in America, site, and worked on a very cool 19th century burial ground that had been partially destroyed out of negligence by a construction company, which is a big problem we run into. Both sites were super cool, but I can't get into specifics about where they're located. The remains of the last slave ship to smuggle imported slaves into America, after it was outlawed, was just found in Alabama. I don't know a lot about it because I'm not an underwater archaeologist though. Recently a ton of phenomenal finds have been excavated in Britain. Examples being a preserved Iron Age shield found in Leicestershire, which changes how we perceived Iron Age British tribal equipment in combat, hoping it will open the door to a broader understanding of the military capabilities of this period, and that C14 dating will give us a more specific dating assessment. I've mainly worked in classical Greek and Imperial Roman archaeology, and Vindolanda is one such site which has been pumping out phenomenal research and artifact findings. Being a reasonably well-preserved Roman fort along Hadrian's Wall, artifacts are found daily. During the past couple of weeks, finds have ranged from leather shoes, tent canvas, even bathhouse sandals to prevent you burning your feet on the hot tiles. These finds have opened a window of immense understanding of daily life within a Roman defensive fort. This is more biological archaeology, but recently a jawbone of Denisovan remains was found in Tibet, which is crazy since those are super difficult living conditions, even in today's lifetime. So far the other remains have been found in Siberia. Denisovans have only come up in conversation and discovery quite recently, so it's always crazy to find any sort of remains. Really gives an idea to our development and what we might have evolved from. It's difficult to talk about things that have been found in the field, but not formally published. The act of publishing is where all the background information, theoretical models, data collection, and analysis go to offer interpretations of finds found in the field. Like, you may have found a tomb, but you can't say much more than it is a tomb, the location, and a general overview of the contents without sitting down and doing the analysis of the mortuary goods, the skeletal remains, and the soils, and then comparing all of that to other known excavated tombs to find similarities and differences on a regional, temporal, and/or cultural scale. So as a rule, archaeologists tend not to talk about things they found in the field until they've had a chance to do all that work and get a publication either in the process of being published, review and edit stage, or the publication is scheduled to come out soon in the next issue of a journal. There's a lot more work that goes into archaeology than many people realize. It's not just digging in the dirt, giving what you find a cursory glance, and making broad sweeping proclamations about the past. There's radiocarbon samples, ceramic sherds, chert, obsidian, bones, metal, fibers, soil, pollen, faunal remains, floral remains, etc. that can and is tested to inform us about the dates of occupation, where clay or chert, obsidian sources are located, the DNA of a person or the stable isotope value that indicates where they grew up, the sources of metals, what plants or animals make up the preserved fibers, chemical signatures in the soil that may indicate certain kinds of activity, the types of plants being grown nearby, and the animals and plants people consumed. It's a monumental undertaking to do archaeology. That being said, I could talk about some recent work that I've done and presented on at a conference if anyone is still interested. Not really that major, but last year I did field school in North Jersey at a Revolutionary War encampment, and we found a button, like a jacket button, that had USA written on it. It was really interesting to see the use of that acronym from such an early stage in America's infancy. Everybody in the field school was freaking out about it. Not an archaeologist, but a major in paleontology. A well-preserved T-Rex skeleton has been discovered in Saskatchewan. They named the New World's largest and oldest T-Rex skeleton. I have always loved dinosaurs, sorry that it doesn't fully relate to the Reddit question. Source: Edit, new info stating it isn't named Scotty. Props to you, Redditor. Edit to Electric Boogaloo. I should have confirmed more of my info, instead of just try an FG to remember it. The T-Rex was found in Saskatchewan by a paleontology researcher from University of Alberta. My apologies for the confusion. Source number 2. I'm pretty sure they recently found proof that the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs did in fact make a huge wave. Here's a link. I don't know if it's national news or anything, but a bunch of fossils and bones of some sort of horned dino were just found on a construction site in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. My cousin's boyfriend was one of the workers that found them. Some dick on his team was trying to load his truck up with a bunch of the fossils and bones and destroyed them. The museum had to confiscate stuff from him. But it's still pretty cool that Colorado has another dinosaur. I think we've had another dinosaur and another really good set of fossils found here. Also, I know this is paleontology and not archaeology, but it's still cool, and I wasn't thinking about that when I decided to post. I hope this thread takes off because I love stuff like this. The Vikings were in America for much longer, and far more of it, than previously thought. It opens up all kinds of questions into Turtle Islander, Native American, Norse relations. This thread is kind of making me sad. I always wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a kid, but they don't make that much money and are away from home for so long. Now I sort of wish I just said fuck it and did it. Not sure how far it got in news-wise. But while renovating the Canadian Parliament in Ottawa, they found a military base older than Confederation. It housed the soldiers building the Rideau Canal. I think it was date 1820. The lead guy was super excited cause they just found where the latrine was. And you can hide things in there easily. That Australasians reached South America tens of thousands of years before the northern migration. They keep the remarks within the relatively accepted time frames of 10,000 to 15,000 years ago. But the hidden truth is there is evidence of settlements closer to the 100,000 BCE mark. Opening square bracket, closing square bracket, opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis. Opening square bracket, closing square bracket, opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis. Also not an archaeologist, but participated in the sifting and sorting of artifacts at the Pocoy Island, Edisto Island, prehistoric shell ring discovery. This was found in 2017. Dated to 4300 BD, i.e. the age of the Egyptian pyramids. It was very interesting finding the shells and bones shaped into tools. Galleries, photos. Archaeologists discover 2 prehistoric shell ring sites at Pocoy. Collection 228-254C-7340-11E9-9174-83C25548958C.html #15 closing square bracket opening parenthesis closing parenthesis. They recently discovered possible evidence that there were humans 100,000 years ago in the Americas. In San Diego they found evidence of what we think are tools made of mastodon bone. So essentially archaeologists are stubborn just like any other type of ideology on academia, and they're reluctant to let go of the theories that dominated the 20th century. For example, we've always been taught Clovis first, meaning the first people to populate the Americas were the Clovis people 10 to 12k years ago. But now there is overwhelming evidence the Americas were populated before that, and possibly all the way back to 100,000 years ago, which would completely change our understanding of humans. Not an archaeologist. Recently in Pakistan, specifically around the city of Peshawar, the remains of a somewhat intact workshop was found. People believe that it may be Gandhara civilization, but some think it may be older. Not an archaeologist, but they are using LiDAR to uncover more buried temples all over the world. The ones that intrigue me are in South America and Cambodia at Angkor Wat. I'm primarily an Egyptologist, but I work for a regional archaeology crew, and recently they found a specific vessel which was very unusual. It's hard to describe, but I couldn't find a picture, but it was a smallish clay pot, which had been made on a wheel and was incredibly well made, but the neck of it was tiny, and it pinched in and out at points. Bad description, I know. Anyway, we got it dated to around the Stuart era, and gave it over to a potter who we sometimes worked with, so he could attempt to make a copy. He couldn't do it. He made a lovely pot, but it was nothing like the original. He explained that he couldn't get the clay thin enough to pinch like the original, because his hands were simply too big to make a pot with a neck of that size. So after a lot of thought they came to a conclusion that it must have been children making these pots. I suggested women, but it turned out even women's hands were too big. Based on other circumstantial evidence from the same context, this was from a relatively poor family, who trained their children in the same trade as them to create beautiful pottery to sell to the elites. In the Stuart era, that style of pottery was around a lot, but it had started not too far from the city we found it in, so we figured they must have been copying the popular style. It's so interesting to think that a child, probably no more than 8, made such a beautiful piece of work. Thanks for watching. What would be your response? Leave it in the comments and see what the others say. Please also like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, take care.